You're scrolling through your phone thinking about your ex, and suddenly their name pops up on your screen, not as a text, but in a random article you're reading. Your heart skips a beat, coincidence, or something deeper. You've been struggling with a major life decision for weeks. And then you overhear a stranger at a coffee shop giving advice that perfectly answers your dilemma. If you've ever experienced moments like these, moments that felt too meaningful to be mere coincidence, then you've experienced what Carl Jung called synchronicity. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why Jung's synchronicity isn't just some mystical mumbo-jumbo, but a psychological phenomenon that could completely change how you navigate your life. Let's start with something that probably happened to you last week. You're thinking about a friend you haven't talked to in months, wondering how they're doing. Suddenly, your phone buzzes. It's them, texting you out of nowhere. You stare at the message, getting that weird tingly feeling. That's so weird, you think. I was literally just thinking about them. This is Jung synchronicity in action, and it happens more often than you think. Carl Jung, the famous Swiss psychiatrist, didn't just notice these strange coincidences. He built an entire theory around them. Jung synchronicity refers to meaningful coincidences that seem to connect our inner psychological state with external events in ways that can't be explained by cause and effect. But here's where it gets fascinating. Jung wasn't some mystical guru sitting in a cave. He was a serious scientist who observed these patterns in his patients for decades. He noticed that when people were going through major psychological transformations, synchronicities would start showing up like breadcrumbs leading them toward their next chapter. Think about it this way. You know that feeling when you're really stressed about something and suddenly everything seems to go wrong at once. Your car breaks down, you spill coffee on your shirt, and you're late for an important meeting. Jung synchronicity works in reverse too. When you're aligned with your authentic path, meaningful coincidences start flowing toward you like a river. Let me give you a real example. I was stuck in a job I absolutely hated, but I was too scared to quit. For months, I kept seeing the number 1111 everywhere. On clocks, receipts, license plates. Then one day, I was walking past a bookstore, and there was a book in the window called the 1111 Code. I went in, bought it, and it was all about following your intuition and taking leaps of faith. That book gave me the courage to finally quit my job and start my own business. Now, a skeptic would say this is just confirmation bias. I was looking for signs, so I found them. But Jung synchronicity suggests something different. Jung believed that when we're psychologically ready for change, our unconscious mind becomes more attuned to meaningful patterns in our environment. Here's another relatable example. You've been single for a while, working on yourself, really figuring out what you want in a relationship. Then, boom, you start running into your ideal type everywhere. At the grocery store, the gym, waiting in line for coffee. It's not that these people weren't there before. It's that your psychological state has shifted, making you more receptive to recognizing what you're truly seeking. Jung's synchronicity operates on what Jung called the collective unconscious, this deeper layer of the psyche that we all share. It's like we're all connected to the same cosmic Wi-Fi network. And sometimes the signals align in ways that create these meaningful moments. But let's get practical. How does Jung synchronicity actually affect your life? First, it can serve as a navigation system for your personal growth. When you're moving in the right direction, synchronicities tend to increase. When you're fighting against your authentic nature, they tend to decrease. I had a client who kept seeing butterflies everywhere during her divorce proceedings. At first, she thought it was random, but butterflies represent transformation and rebirth. The synchronicities were reflecting her psychological process of emerging from a restrictive relationship into her true self. JUNG Synchronicity also affects your decision-making process. Instead of relying purely on logic, you start paying attention to the meaningful patterns around you. This doesn't mean becoming superstitious or abandoning rational thinking. It means expanding your awareness to include intuitive information that your unconscious mind is processing. Here's a mind-blowing example. You're trying to decide between two job offers. One pays more, but something feels off about it. You're walking to meet a friend to discuss it, and you see 3 separate road closed signs. Then you notice the company name of the higher-paying job on a billboard with a big red X spray-painted over it. JUNG Synchronicity suggests these aren't random events. They are meaningful coincidences reflecting your unconscious wisdom about the situation. The key to understanding JUNG Synchronicity is realizing it's not about external forces controlling your life. It is about the mysterious connection between your inner psychological state and the patterns you notice in the world around you. When you're psychologically prepared for insight, the insight appears in symbolic form through seemingly unrelated events. Let me share another powerful example. A woman was contemplating whether to have children. She'd been going back and forth for months. One morning, she found a baby bird that had fallen from its nest in her backyard. As she carefully returned it to safety, she felt this overwhelming sense of purpose. That afternoon, she saw a mother duck leading her ducklings across the street, and strangers were stopping their cars to let them pass safely. That evening, her neighbor asked if she could babysit because their regular sitter had cancelled. 3 separate events, all connected by the theme of nurturing and protection. 6 months later, she was pregnant with her first child. This is how JUNG Synchronicity guides major life transitions. It's not that the universe is sending you messages through cosmic text. It's that your psyche is ready to perceive meaningful patterns that support your growth and development. But here's what most people miss about JUNG Synchronicity. It's not just about the big, dramatic moments. It happens in small, everyday ways that can completely shift your perspective. You're feeling disconnected from your creativity, and then you find a child's abandoned art project on a park bench. You're questioning whether you're on the right career path. And your Uber driver starts telling you about how he left his corporate job to become a chef and has never been happier. JUNG Synchronicity teaches us that meaning isn't something we have to create from scratch. It is something we can discover by paying attention to the patterns that are already there. When you start noticing these patterns, your life begins to feel less random and more purposeful. Here's how you can start working with JUNG Synchronicity in your daily life. First, pay attention to repetitive symbols, numbers, or themes that show up in your experience. If you keep seeing eagles everywhere, Ask yourself what eagles might represent in your current life situation. Freedom, perspective, the ability to soar above your current challenges. Second, notice the timing of unusual events in relation to your mental or emotional state. That book recommendation from a stranger might hit different when you're struggling with the exact issue the book addresses. JUNG Synchronicity suggests these timing alignments are meaningful, not random. Third, keep a synchronicity journal. When meaningful coincidences happen, write them down along with what was going on in your inner life at the time. Over weeks and months, you'll start seeing patterns that can guide your decision-making process. The most important thing about JUNG Synchronicity is that it requires a shift in how you see causation itself. We're trained to think in terms of linear cause and effect. JUNG Synchronicity operates on what he called a causal connection events that are connected by meaning rather than mechanical causation. Let me give you one final powerful example. A man was stuck in a successful but soul-crushing career as a lawyer. For months, he kept finding pennies everywhere. One day, walking to work, he found 3 pennies in a row. As he bent down to pick up the third one, he noticed he was standing in front of a community center advertising woodworking classes. He'd always loved working with his hands as a kid, but had abandoned it for law school. That night, he signed up for the class. Within 2 years, he'd transitioned to full-time woodworking and was happier than he'd been in decades. This is the transformative power of JUNG Synchronicity. It helps you align your conscious choices with your deeper wisdom by providing symbolic feedback about your psychological state and life direction. When you embrace JUNG Synchronicity, you're not becoming superstitious or abandoning rationality. You're expanding your intelligence to include intuitive pattern recognition alongside logical analysis. Your life stops feeling like a series of random events and starts feeling like a story that is being co-authored by your conscious intentions and your unconscious wisdom. Every synchronicity becomes a chapter in your personal myth of becoming who you're meant to be. The next time you experience one of those too weird to be coincidence moments, don't dismiss it. Ask yourself, what was I thinking about? What decision am I facing? What aspect of my life is asking for attention? The answer might just change everything. JUNG Synchronicity isn't about believing that external forces control your destiny. It is about recognizing that your inner psychological development and your outer life experience are mysteriously and meaningfully connected. The question isn't whether synchronicities are real or imaginary. The question is, are you paying attention? Because once you start noticing JUNG Synchronicity in your life, you'll never see the world the same way again. So I want to know, what synchronicities have you noticed in your own life? Drop a comment below and share your story. Remember to like this video if JUNG Synchronicity resonates with your experience. Subscribe for more content on psychology and personal growth, and hit that notification bell so you never miss insights that might just arrive at exactly the moment you need them most.